we are having our next speaker with us. And yeah, she's actually an expert on the law side of things, specifically IP, right? So we have Joanna Rindell, and she's an NFT senior legal counsel at OneFootball. And we're going to talk about NFT licenses and how creators legally protect their IP. I think that's something that not many people take into consideration, but I think it's extremely important, right? Because not only to protect yourself from whatever regulations can be, but also to actually use all these technology for you as a creator to actually have all these gains, or have all that profit and monetary, but also everything. So let's go for it. How are you, Joanna? Yeah, you have to shake it, exactly. We know the rules.
Yeah, no, I've spent enough hours in this room during today to know to shake this. And also I wanted to say that I hope everyone still has some energy. I was in London like 3 weeks ago, and the last panel of the day was also with a bunch of lawyers, and I felt really sorry for the people in the crowd. So I hope that you guys can still have some energy. I will try to make this interesting. We'll see.
For sure. Actually, let's do something. I like to get the audience involved a little bit, because when we're talking licenses, we all know collections that involve licenses. I don't know, let's do another check. Like, who now in the room has an NFT? Like, who has an NFT in their wallets? Great, that's quite good for a Web3 blockchain conference. Probably in the real estate, that's not like that. So, who knows what is, for example, Bored Ape Yachts Club? Raise your hand. Bored Ape Yachts Club. No?
The apes. Anyone? No?
Who has a Bored Ape Yachts Club?
Who wishes they would have one?
Exactly. Who wishes one they had one? Well, I'm sure you're going to tell us a lot about it, but yeah, there's all these intellectual property that you actually own when you also own one of these things, right? And that enables you a whole world of business, creativity, etc. So, first of all, how did you get into NFTs and Web3? And then let's talk about that.
I started working for a layer 1 protocol about a little bit over a year ago, and that was essentially how I got into blockchain. That was quite the crash course, but super interesting. Mm-hmm. And then now, more recently, I work for OneFootball, which is a football media application, so a Web 2 company. And they recently launched we recently launched our NFT collection. And we now have, essentially, if somebody knows what the NBA Top Shot is, so they are digital video moments. And we have that, but for football content. So that's what we do. And this is, so yeah, I have a background in intellectual property and tech, always specialized in that also during my studies already. So sort of venturing into always trying to find the newest technologies out there. Or I've always been really interested in that. So it was like, I don't know, I feel like a quite sort of normal way of, if you just go with what your heart desires, sort of listening to that and what you're interested in, then eventually you always end up in Web3. No, maybe not everyone, but a lot of, all of us in this room.
All roads lead to Web3.
But yeah, no, so that's how I got into it. And just in general, I think as a lawyer, it's quite useful to have the intellectual property and tech background, of course, because the space is so new that you need, sort of in my job, I take the old and I combine it with the new, and then that's my job, or that's sort of, then the output is, hopefully at least, legislation that fits with the blockchain world, because nothing like that really exists still or currently, so.
Thank you for bringing your expertise to the space then. So let's start a bit funky. Like, what do you think most people are missing or they don't even think about when they talk about NFTs and IP?
I think that the most common thing is probably the very, very fundamental question is that, do people understand what an NFT is? Because if we talk about an NFT or rights in the NFT, we have to think about the fact that an NFT is basically twofold. So it's the line of code, and then it's the artwork. And then when these two come together, that's when you actually have your what we would call an NFT, or a non-fungible token, or digital collectible, or whatever we want to call it. To allude back to what the previous panel said, I also think that we will have a new term for this. But essentially, that means that this artwork that we see is many times just a picture on an off-chain. It's not even on the blockchain. What you have on the blockchain is that piece of code, and this is essentially what you will own when you own your NFT. And that piece of art sits, as I said, somewhere in an IPS or whatever off-chain data storage, and yeah, that's essentially what you see. And then what you then own is, let's say, when we then talk about many times the rights around your NFT, we're many times talking about who owns that picture or the right to that picture. And I think this is also many times just what I try to make very clear, because then the ownership of that picture or what you want to do with that picture or so on is what you want to take into consideration when you, for example, decide on licenses or anything like that.
Great, that makes a lot of sense, actually, right? There's this code or this token on the blockchain, and then there's the art. But then, for example, one-on-one projects, someone buys the NFT, and the artist has made an art. Who's the art? Who has the license, who has the rights of the art? The artist or the holder?
That really depends on how you have structured it. So also the previous panel with Delphine and Maria, they talked a lot about different strategies. So this then really depends on your project. So you can take something like OneFootball, or NBA Top Shot. Those are very very closed off projects, mostly for two reasons. Because the media that you have in there is owned by somebody else already from before. So if you have an image of footage of a football game, that belongs to the club. If you have a picture of the player, that belongs to the player, and so on. So we, as OneFootball, who are creating these digital video moments, we cannot give the right to you, for example, who would be the owner, and say, look, you can get the right to the art, and you can do whatever it is that you want with this art, because it doesn't belong to us. We're really just kind of the one in the middle who put together the code and the art, who made that collection. But that right to that medium will always stay with either the football player or the club, or so on. Then if we take the Bored Apes that we just discussed, we take those, and then do you all know what the moonbirds are? We'll take two examples here. Does anyone know what a moonbird is? Okay, it's those owl-looking small creatures.
Maybe some more, but you are the brave ones. That's good.
So then you can have two different types of, you would have the apes, where Yoga Labs, who is the creators behind that artwork, has now said, yes, as an owner, you can take that picture that you own and you can use it as your logo, or, I don't know, on your restaurant, whatever you want to do with it, but that art will still belong to us. Or you have the Moonbirds, where the Proof Collective, which is the creators behind the birds, said, we'll make the artwork completely, like we will license it under the something called the CC0 license, which is like a very open license. And then they said anyone who holds a Moonbird can really take that Moonbird and do something else creative with it. So if you own a Moonbird and I don't, I can just go and copy your Moonbird, the artwork, but essentially your Moonbird, and I can use that as my little avatar in a video game, or I can make a Moonbird movie or whatever it is, because anyone has then the freedom of using whatever, or doing, more derivative works with that art. So that was a very long explanation to that, but I would say these are like currently the 3 use cases that we mostly see. So you have something that's completely open, something that is semi-open, I would say, and something that's very closed off.
That's amazing. That's very clear, actually. And maybe before even getting into the details of what kinds of licenses or what kinds of strategies, let's say, we can use as a creator, let me summarize a little bit that. Actually, I'm going to even translate just in case there's someone Spanish in the room, because I think this is very important, which is un NFT, un NFT, tiene 2 partes, ¿no? La parte de código, la parte de, bueno, más que de código, el token que queda que se codifica, pero es el token que queda en la blockchain, y el arte, que normalmente esto no se guarda en la blockchain, se guarda fuera, ya sea en un sistema más o menos descentralizado, distribuido como IPFS, que no es tenerlo en Google o en Amazon, es un sistema un poco descentralizado, sea donde esté, está fuera de la blockchain, y en la blockchain tienes el token. Tú como holder te pertenece el token, pero no la imagen. Entonces, le he preguntado a quién le pertenecen los derechos de la obra de arte, y Joanna me decía, depende. ¿De qué depende? Depende de la naturaleza del NFT. En su caso, en OneFootball, es una especie de NBA Top Shots donde hacen NFTs de jugadas de fútbol. Entonces, yo no te puedo vender un NFT de una jugada de fútbol y darte los derechos de esa jugada, porque esos derechos van a pertenecer al club, al jugador o a lo que sea. Pero, por ejemplo, en una colección como Bored Apes, el token es del holder, pero los derechos, bueno, en principio son de Yuga Labs, y si no me equivoco, if I don't mistake, from Yuga Labs, the rights are from Yuga Labs and they license the rights to the holder. Is it like that?
Yes. I'm going to correct myself because I just realized it's not the apes, it's the punks that belong to Yoga.
Okay.
But sorry about that.
Okay.
But everything else that I said was correct. But Yoga Labs has the punks, not the apes.
We're going to go into that. So the punks los CryptoPunks son más o menos igual. Bueno, de hecho no son igual. Directamente los derechos son abiertos, ¿vale? No, tú cuando los derechos les pertenece a todo el mundo, right? Punks? No, sorry, yeah. Now Yuga Labs acquired Punks, so now they kind of open the rights, right? For the holders. But before...
But they still own the artwork.
They still own the artwork, exactly. So, así que sí, la propiedad la tiene Yuga Labs, ¿de acuerdo? Estos son los CryptoPunks. Y en cambio, por ejemplo, Moonverse, que es otra colección que acaba de pasar a ser lo que se llama CC0, todo el mundo o nadie tiene esos derechos. Por lo tanto, si yo soy holder del Moonverse 1, 2, 3, tú puedes usar el Moonverse 1, 2, 3 como tu imagen de perfil o incluso para hacerte una camiseta. ¿Por qué? Porque son derechos abiertos. ¿Vale? Entonces, ahí está un poco la diferencia. I think we're on point now. Great. I think this is very, at least for me, was very confusing to understand at the beginning. Because first of all, I've never realized, like, yes, of course, like, I'm an art buyer, I buy some art, I have the art. In a way, I cannot make a photo and make a t-shirt out of the art and sell it because I don't have the rights, right? So that's a very strange thing to think, that as a holder, depends on what the collection says, I can do one thing or another. I do own the token, I do own the token on the blockchain, but the art depends on what the owners allow me to do. right? And we just said that CC0 would mean that there is actually open rights, so I can do whatever I want, but me as a holder and you as a holder and everyone. But for example, maybe let's get into the example of the Bored Apes. In Bored Ape, the rights, Yuga Labs, the owners, have the rights, but they license me as a holder the rights to use it commercially. Is that right?
So, first of all, that is where I needed to correct myself because Yuga Labs has the CryptoPunks and not the Bored Apes, but it doesn't matter. The point being that they still hold the right to the artwork. So what I meant with the model in between is that what the creators between that artwork did is that so the artwork behind the CryptoPunks is that they say we will allow any holder to use the artwork for their own benefit, creative purposes, create derivative works and so on. But we still hold the rights, the ownership to the artwork is the right term. So in comparison to the Moonbirds, where the owner of the NFT also holds the ownership rights to the artwork in itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of ownership, the difference is the collection, Yuga has the ownership, or the founders have the ownership, or the holder also can have the ownership with CC0, which is, for example, Moonbirds.
And also, under CC0, I think the most important maybe thing to point out under that is that it is not only the owner who can commercialize, it's whomever. So I can commercialize and use the art of a Moonbird even if I don't hold a Moonbird. So I can just go and copy whomever's Moonbird, and that's completely illegal.
That raises a very interesting question, because it's like, why would somebody do that, right? So actually, before like maybe getting into how to choose the right license for your project, why should a creator make sure to protect their collection with a license? Like, why should somebody think about that when they're creating an NFT, just to start?
To think about how you want to monetize your work. That's why I would always recommend to think about like under how you want to license it, under which type.
Important.
And what you believe in, I guess. So I guess both two things. Of course, in OneFootball's case, we don't really have a choice because like a person, a player will always, we talk about personal rights, we talk about like media rights to the game and so on. Like this is still such a limited space, or like that space is still governed by so many copyright rules that you don't really kind of want to go and put your spoon in that soup. But when it then comes to if you're an artist and you create your own collection, it then depends on what rights you want to give to your community, for example. Do you want to, are you the proof collective who believes that by giving, essentially by having a very open license like the CC0, that ultimately having a whole community, a little bit like the open source community believed that opening up the code will lead to more projects and products. That's kind of how the proof collective, or how, because of course you also have the nouns and more projects out there that are CC0, but anyone who CC0s, I guess, ultimately believes that the more people create derivative works, the more the value of the original is going to have. So a little bit like, even though you can buy Mona Lisa in a million different versions, the original will always be the original. So really think about it. And I want to also throw in here that in general, also for an artist, I don't know how much anyone here in the audience has followed now the recent discussions on the marketplaces and the fact that you are starting to see marketplaces like SushiSwap and similar that are taking away the royalty fees to the artists.
Sorry, I think it's SudoSwap.
Yeah, sorry.
It's very similar.
sorry.
I was like, I'm losing one.
SudoSwap, exactly. That are taking away the royalties. The D-Goods, it's a Solana project. They also now did the same.
The gods, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so also there, you of course then as an artist want to think about, even more so, like how do you think that your project is going to grow? As in, what type of license do you? And also, is it important to you to hold on to the rights to your artwork and not have people exploit it? Because of course, then when you give the community or a lot of people the right to, for example, copy your artwork freely, you might have problems such as, is it going to be used to advertise guns and hate speech and whatever? So there's a lot of components definitely to think about.
Yeah, it seems like a complex task, right? To choose what type of license would you choose for your project. And as you said, maybe the CC0 makes more sense for projects that are intended to grow a community, because you're basically allowing everyone to make the marketing for your own community, right? Yeah. Because they can use it for whatever. It's like, if I make some t-shirts and everybody's using them, yes, please use them, so that you just do publicity out there. And that seems to work quite well. Actually, Nouns is a case in itself, because they're very expensive, and actually they're doing a huge treasury, and it's like an experiment on how to do like a DAO. And the good thing about Nouns actually is that they're automatically done. There's a code, right, that it generates themselves every day, I think. And so, well, that's a full other topic, like who owns the right if it's a generative algorithm that make the art. I think that's a whole other topic.
That's a completely other topic, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, I guess the coder.
I think that's under discussion. Like,
Okay.
Is it the AI? Is it the creator behind the AI?
That's
is
deep.
it?
Yeah, because it can be like the coder who uses the AI model or the creator of the AI model. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Let's not open that door because we can go deep. But yeah, I don't want to be an IP lawyer in that place.
It's really interesting.
Anyway, Joanna, where can I find licenses? Like, how can I get resources to know about where to find these? Do I have to go to a law firm on Web3? Do I have to call you? Where's the resources to find all these licenses?
So I think currently what's really nice to see is that there are some projects out there that are building basic templates that one can go and copy. They're supposed to be open source. A16 Set Zero. What's the shortening of? Everyone knows the venture capital behind all of these famous projects.
A16 Set.
Exactly.
Andersen Horowitz.
Exactly. I always forget which letters comes last. They have something called the Good Evil Project, for example, but by Googling, you will surely find it. But essentially, that's a collection of different types of templates for licensing. Now, one should, since we are in the EU, mention that they are under European, US copyright law. So, but they definitely give an indication of like the direction of, or what to think about if one wants to just use licenses that are out there. Dapper Labs also has one just called NFT license. Which is a template that they are updating from time to time, meaning that there are companies out there with big NFT projects that put also in very much effort to the community to make sure that there are licenses in place. And I hope to see even more such projects because I do think that they're interesting and important.
these guys actually also have a very nice collection of educational resources. They have this collection said NFT Canon or DAO Canon, or there's actually a lot of articles that are really interesting. They're doing a good job. So a little bit to wrap it up, like we've talked about how, if you're a creator, how do you get different kind of licenses, but if you're a collector, how can you make sure, because I don't want to, if I buy an NFT and I start a business out of it, I want to make sure that actually I'm going to have those rights for sure, and that's not going to change eventually. So how can I make sure that that license brings me the rights I want?
Yeah, I think as a collector, as also if you're an NFT creator, but think about what you actually want to achieve. Is it to hold it? Is it to flip it? Is it to commercialize on the NFT that you are buying? And read the licensing terms. And then, of course, currently, as we went, or going back to the discussion on SudoSwap, for example, then if you are somebody who is looking to buy, to hold them, and then to flip it, meaning that you then sell it for a higher price later on, you might then also, of course, want to keep in mind to now scout after secondary sales platforms that don't take any fees in between, so that you don't lose money when you actually sell them. Now, that, as a disclaimer, a little bit breaks my heart to just say it, but I'm gonna put it out there so that anyone who has that agenda also can think about that. But as a creator, I do hope that, going back to Anna, what she just said in the previous talk, when she said that the next generation is going to be the ones that kind of show us how we want to monetize on NFTs. I think that this whole now discussion around how the secondary, fees on secondary sales on different platforms and so on, that we will see how this all develops in the future. Is it going to be so that the creators simply now lost all secondary revenues, or can we then as a community rather make sure that we push for this not to be the case, and that all secondary sales platforms also in the future give back royalties to the original creator? But again, if you are a collector, you're looking to flip, you're looking to make money out of the NFTs that you hold, do read the licensing and think about maybe on which platforms you would then resell your NFTs.
That's nice advice, thank you. So anybody in the audience would like to make any questions to Joanna about IP, NFTs, art, rights? Yeah, there's a question there. There's another one, actually. Oh, okay, interesting.
Yes, a couple of bits. One was when you have a NFT with protection on it and you sell it and you're flipping it in the secondary market, does that protection still valid in the secondary marketplace, Or are you starting to come under new terms as soon as you put it there? That's one thing. And then the other one I was going to ask you was, because I do music NFTs, whether that's another different type of protection you might need if there's art and music involved.
To your first question, and here I will highly encourage, if there is someone that has more technical skills than me, then please intervene in my answer. But my understanding is that there is no technical way currently to enforce licenses on NFTs, which would mean that essentially also, for example, going back to royalties, even if I would create an NFT collection and I would create terms and conditions that would say, also for secondary markets, I as the I, as the creator, get 5%. And then somebody buys my NFT and goes on and sells it on a secondary market platform that is compatible with the technology, with that blockchain technology underlying my NFT. It might be that would be pseudo-swap that says, no, we don't give artists any royalties, so hence, essentially, we don't have to implement this because it's, again, it's not technically possible to code that into the metadata at the moment, and therefore also, in that sense, not enforceable. But with regards to, for example, personal rights and so on, those can't, let's say in the OneFootball example that I gave earlier, those can't be circumvented because that is a person's personal rights. So yeah, then that would always trouble with the NFT. And I forgot your second
The second
question.
one was about, and you've got NFT that includes music and art, whether you can do encompassing agreement, you know, protected under one, you know, in a smart contract, because a lot of it's getting written into the smart contract now, isn't it? So can they both be protected, the piece of art and the music, if they're separate?
Sorry, I'm going to have to repeat your question. So the music component can be protected, and which was the other component?
So like an art component, just like if you're listening, if you've got a track which got a cover, imagine there's a cover and there's artwork, but there's also music. So.
Yeah. I would say yes. They can probably be covered differently, depending on, again, just how you formulate the terms and conditions. But also there are different types of art forms, so they would be covered differently.
Are you putting yours into the smart contract, or is it doing it separately?
Yeah. We, at OneFootball, we have terms and conditions just out there for everyone to read, which of course nobody ever does, but should one want to read them, they are there available. We also have a licensing, like a shorter one, just outlining the ownership that is in the metadata of the NFT. But the problem is that, of course, nobody, like really, you have to be sort of knowing what you're doing if you want to go and have a look at that. I mean, you have to know how to sort of open the metadata points. But yeah, we do both.
Question here.
Hola, hola. Thank you, Joanna, for this presentation. I was actually waiting for it a lot. We were speaking in LinkedIn before. I'm Sasha, and for example, we work with Cointelegraph, making NFT from their content and tracking the usage, so nobody can use the same content, the original content of them. So I'm interested when you say that every CryptoPunk original owner can use it for making t-shirt or, I don't know, making something nice, how you can prevent that another people use the same CryptoPunk for their own t-shirts, their own avatars, or even making commercial, I don't know, parties of goods and selling it in like a counterfeit. So what we can do in this camp when it's not in digital space, like when people start to bring every CryptoPunk or, I don't know, a Bored Ape in t-shirts and sell somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's, we'll have to see, and there probably will be cases coming up around that, but ultimately I think it's like what we see with any type of counterfeiting goods. So essentially we would know, right? I mean, with the CryptoPunks, you, of course, or with any NFT, you know who the holder is. And then if I hold the punk and somebody has copied it and so on, then essentially somebody is infringing both my rights, but in the case of a CryptoPunk, also Yoga Labs' right to the artwork. So then that would be essentially two parties that can go out and chase, really for copyright infringement because he couldn't print his t-shirts.
It's very unbalanced because the single person, the physical person who owns this NFT can do a lot, like a big company who owns the intellectual property. So how can they can't even imagine whom the claim should be addressed to. So for the physical person, owner of an original NFT, it's even more, maybe 100 or 1,000 times difficult, like for a big corporation or something like this.
Yeah, exactly. I think we will only see like what happens, right? Because on the other hand, if you're somebody who holds a punk, you have somebody like Yoga Lamps behind, it's also in their interest to maybe support you and really try to go after the person. Whomever is infringing the infringer. But of course, if you bought an NFT that somebody has copied and you don't have like a very huge multi-million company behind that creative work that has that cash flow to go after as well, the situation might be different. And then ultimately we also have what I said before in the case of CC0s or the Moonbirds, for example. Like, what are you then going to do when all of a sudden somebody used the Moonbird for hate speech or advertising guns or whatever? Like, we will surely see a lot of these cases where we just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, okay.
Then we can reach Joanna afterwards.
Cool. Hi, babe. Is there a way that you can track your NFT? So like once you've put it up onto the blockchain, you've sold it on one platform, someone's bought it off you, they're going to go flip it on another platform. Can you track it? Because you have obviously the original blockchain code. Is it possible to do that? Is there any sort of platform or company that can protect you? Yeah, I thought you said that. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, thank you.
There was another question down there, but yeah, okay.
I'm really, really happy that we're also engaged.
It's a very interesting topic that no one knows about. So. Okay. Now we are going to make this the last question.
I just wanted to end on maybe kind of a fun note. I know this is a very groundbreaking space. Like you mentioned, there's no real enforcement mechanism, but is there kind of a case, a potential case, a project, a company that you're following that you're really interested in seeing what the outcome is?
That's a great question. I definitely want to see how the Moonbirds project is playing out, for sure. And then I am really, just in general, curious about how this whole we are not going to pay royalties on secondary market sales is going to play out as well. So we will see. But there is a lot happening in the space. And also, I am really really excited about bigger companies such as Coinbase now after the tornado crash. Tornado crash. I'm like, it's late. Can't remember the words. Like all of these cases and bigger companies really sort of challenging regulators, asking for more regulation, clearer advice, and so on. I think this is all great development to see.